I'm Jennimai, Mashable's tech reporter, and if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a lifelong iPhone user. But for a week, I did test out Samsung's new phone, the S22 Plus. And let me tell you, I really almost converted to the Android life. I know, it's basically treason if you're an iPhone user like me, but this is a really good phone, guys, and I'm gonna break down exactly why. First of all, this phone is kind of gorgeous. I got to test it out in the pink gold color, which happens to be one of my favorite colors. But if you're less into this pink gold, you can also get it in phantom white, phantom black, and green. And if you buy it online, you can get exclusive online colors like graphite, cream, sky blue, and violet. In terms of design, it's not super different from the S21 Plus. It's actually very similar, but Samsung kind of said, let's not mess with what works, you know? And you have to appreciate that when it works. In terms of size, it has a 6.6-inch Gorilla Glass Victus Plus screen, which is just a very fancy way of saying a very strong screen. It's also encased in what Samsung calls armor aluminum, which is this juicy shine around the edges, and it should make the edges extra strong. I didn't drop it from any significant height while I was using it. I wasn't gonna go throwing this thing off a building just to test that out for you, but it feels pretty strong. It feels like if I were to drop this, I wouldn't get a huge crack in it. It's also got that same 3-camera vertical setup that the S21 Plus had, and all of the usual buttons and holes on the side. It's nothing special, it's nothing new, it's just that bump is a little annoying to me. The phone itself is so flat and so thin, and that's something that I loved while I was using it, that this little bump annoyed me, but it's not unique to Samsung. Almost every smartphone has some form of camera bump. You can probably get rid of it by using a thicker case, but then you have less of a thin phone, so compromise for the things that you want, you know? In terms of other things in the design, there's the usual USB-C charging port on the bottom, which as an iPhone user, this little thing was so nice. And it's not something that a non-iPhone user would really notice, because I'm sure Android people are used to it, but it charges using USB-C on both ends. So I never had to look at my charging cord and figure out which one was the lightning end and which one was the USB-C end to plug it in. It was just like plug and go. It was amazing, which is super minor, but something that I genuinely appreciated in the week that I used this phone. A little thing that did annoy me though is that the buttons are actually all on the same side. Again, something that a Samsung user and Android user would not notice and is very used to, but because I'm normally an iPhone user, I'm used to my buttons being on opposite sides. On the iPhone, you get the lock button on the right side and a volume control and a silencing switch on the left side. All of that is on the right side on this phone, which is perfectly fine, but I kept hitting the wrong buttons anytime I wanted to lock the phone or change my volume. And there's no physical silencing switch, so I could still silence it, but I wasn't extra sure that it was silent, you know? So if I was ever in a movie theater or anything, I'd be a little extra anxious that my phone wasn't actually on silent. Ended up being fine, I just kept hitting a couple wrong buttons, and it's something that would be solved with time, but in a week of using it, I pressed the wrong buttons all the time. So let's also talk, of course, about these cameras. There's obviously the 3 cameras in the back, and there's a gorgeous hole punch camera on the front, no ugly notch like there is on all of the iPhones, which is something, of course, I loved. You get a 10 megapixel selfie camera on the front and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 50 megapixel wide angle, and a 10 megapixel telephoto camera in the back. It's very comparable to the iPhone's 12 megapixel 13 Pro setup overall, but this does have a much more detailed main camera. So when I was using the cameras, I feel like I definitely noticed that. Something about Samsung's photos are kind of just a little bit more real. The iPhone, don't get me wrong, takes incredible photos. I have never had a problem taking photos with my iPhone 13 Pro, but the colors, the crispness on the S22 Plus was really, really impressive. And I saw that especially with portrait mode. So again, portrait mode, amazing on the iPhone system, but on the Samsung S22 Plus, everything was extra crisp and it let me get really, really close to my subject and still get all of that detail on their face and get that bokeh effect even when the background was kind of boring. So I would almost say that I preferred the portrait mode effect on the S22 Plus. Overall, I also tested out the S22 Plus's nightography, which is Samsung's fancy word for low light mode. I was out at dinner, took a couple videos in low light outside at night, and my food turned out amazing. It looked really good on camera, and it transitioned really easily from food to a person to just the surrounding scene. So I was very impressed at what I could get in such low light situations. In terms of other fun camera features that the S22 Plus has, you can also dig deeper into the camera settings and turn on more smart suggestions. So I did turn on this feature called Shot Suggestions, and it helps me line up my shot to get the optimal shot of whatever I'm looking at. And I thought I was a pretty good photographer, but this made me better, for sure. And if I had that all the time, I think I would keep it on. I don't really see the reason why I wouldn't. And if you don't like where it tells you to line up your shot, you can just not line it up there. It's really only a helpful thing. It also had modes like food photography. So I like to take pictures of my food. Phone eats first, always. And it looked really, really nice in that lighting. Again, if I decided I didn't like the lighting, I could just turn it off, and that was super easy. I'm pretty tempted to say that the S22 Plus's cameras are better than the iPhone 13 Pros. And that's a big admission from someone like me. So good job, Samsung. In terms of other little things that I noticed while I was using the S22 Plus throughout the week, there are just little trade-offs or just little things to get used to. I'm very used to swiping through my phone to navigate. I will swipe between tweets or Instagram posts, and I've trained my thumbs to remember the exact patterns that it takes to navigate through my iPhone. So learning how to do that on the Samsung was obviously different, but I will say that gesture controls in general on the S22 Plus felt like a little bit more difficult. I felt like I had to swipe from a very specific spot on the screen in order to navigate rather than just kind of putting my finger wherever I wanted on the screen. So it takes a little bit of training, and I wasn't fully used to that. But in terms of actual scrolling, that was very nice. It's very smooth. This phone has an adaptable refresh rate that moves between 10 Hertz and 120 Hertz. And you're not meant to notice that so much, and I wouldn't say that I noticed it throughout the week, especially if it was on that lower end of the refresh rate. But when I was doing things like scrolling my TikTok feed or playing a phone game, it did feel extra smooth, and the graphics looked really nice, and everything worked exactly as it should have. So I do feel like I noticed it when it was performing extra well, and I didn't notice it when it was on the lower end. So exactly what you want it to be. Speaking of TikTok, I love to scroll my TikTok feed, and the scroll looks amazing, but because I was using an Android phone, a lot of the AR effects on TikTok aren't compatible with an Android, or maybe specifically the Samsung. I haven't tested other Android phones, but a lot of AR effects were not working on this phone. So I found myself missing my iPhone for when I wanted to try out a new trending filter that I couldn't play around with. Very minor, but kind of a big thing in my day-to-day life. I was pleasantly surprised that I could pretty easily pair my AirPods with this phone. Obviously, AirPods, Samsung, Android, not friends, but it was very easy to pair it via Bluetooth as usual. I did have to go into the settings and make sure that they were paired pretty much every time I wanted to use them, but I did anticipate that, and it wasn't too big of a deal. Listening to music on it, listening to podcasts, great. Sound quality, great, obviously. The only annoying thing with that was that the microphones on my AirPods didn't really work when I was trying to capture video on the S22 Plus while wearing my AirPods. I tried speaking into the AirPods and taking a video at the same time, and the audio didn't really work. I could tell that it was capturing the audio from the phone, and if I ever blocked that speaker, there was no sound coming through. So, a learning lesson, but glad I figured it out and I didn't take too many videos with my AirPods in, because that just didn't work. Overall, I liked this phone, and you might be wondering why I'm saying that I only almost converted to the Android life after really liking this phone for a week. Honestly, the answer is that I don't like change. I don't really like changing up my usual routine, and I've been using my iPhone forever. But this phone made a really good case for change until I figured out that Apple did one really annoying thing that's probably gonna keep me from changing at least anytime soon. In case you're not aware, Apple actually doesn't let you add Android numbers into existing iMessage group chats. I had my friend try to add me into an existing group chat using this Android number for the week, and it literally barred him from putting me in. So, in terms of actually switching to the Android life, I think I have a little bit too much FOMO to actually make the switch. But this phone is very, very nice, and it's pretty on par with the pricing of an Apple phone. The S22 Plus starts at $999, which is not cheap, but it is on par with a bunch of other smartphones out there, including the iPhone 13. So, if you're convinced to give it a try, whether you're coming from a previous Samsung or Android, or you're considering making the switch from the iPhone life yourself, this is a good phone, people, and I do recommend giving it a try. Maybe one day I'll actually make the switch myself.